Congratulations, you finished writing your book. So it's a great feeling. But now what do you do? What do you do next? Hey, welcome to the Julia Monte channel. If we're just meeting, I am Julia Monte. I'm a women's fiction author. And today we're going to be talking about what do you do when you're finished with your book. So it's a great feeling to be finished after weeks, months, maybe years of writing your book. You finally get to type the end at the end of that journey, right? And so, but now the journey sort of begins again. Because what do you do next? Now that the book is finished, it's time to get it out to readers, right? Or at least to get it published if you're not planning on publishing and having the world read it. Maybe it's something smaller. Maybe it's something that you are intending to have to sell just locally. Maybe you're a real estate agent and it's just going to help you to sell more homes, right? So you, depending on your goal, you're either going to do sort of a mass marketing publication where you're going to be sending it out to as many people as possible. So this probably is the case for a lot of fiction authors, but nonfiction authors may be a little different. But now what do you do, right? So you've got the book finished, and now it's time to do something, depending on whether you're going to get it mass published or you're going to do a small small run of your book, or whether you're just going to do an ebook. But it's time to decide what next. And so what we're going to look at is what next, right? So the first thing that you want to do, especially if you have a novel, right? Especially if you're writing fiction, is that you want to send this book out now to readers. So some people have beta readers. So that means that these are volunteers that are interested in reading your book. They're excited about reading your book, and they want to be the first readers. So they get to read the book first and then give you some feedback, telling you some of the things they like. You know, they're reading as a reader. They're not reading as an editor, so they don't need to find everything that's wrong with it, but they do should give you some feedback. Is there some place where the character really turned them off, or there was just something that they didn't like, or they thought it just didn't make sense? Like, why would the character be going towards this, on this path, and all of a sudden change? So maybe the turning point was too quick for them, or it wasn't developed enough. And so they might not know why they don't like it, but they might just say, I don't like this part here. It doesn't sound believable that the character would do this. So this gives you a clue as the writer that, okay, that is a part of the book that just isn't working, and why? Why did I not set it up right? What happened? So sending it to early readers helps. If you don't have beta readers, or you don't want to use beta readers, that's okay. We've talked about having critique partners before. So if you have joined a critique group, this is a good place to take it. Now, you're not going to take usually to a critique group your entire novel, because it's just too much. Usually you take a chapter, and it's not always just a continuation, right? So you're not always taking, let's say, chapter 1, and then the next time you take chapter 2. Sometimes it's just the chapters that you're working on that you seem to be having a difficult time with, or that you think you need a little more feedback. So critique groups are good for that. But you might have a critique partner where you actually do exchange your entire novel. So maybe when you're finished, that's the agreement. You read my novel, I'll read your novel, and then we'll see, we'll give each other feedback and help each other that way. So sometimes that will help. But so let's say that you don't have any of that. You don't have beta readers, you don't have critique groups, you don't have really anybody that is knowledgeable enough to give you any feedback on your book. Then that's okay. You don't really have to do that. It's just kind of nice to get a little bit of reader feedback. But if you don't have that, then it's time to send it to a real editor, a professional editor. And I suggest that you don't skip this part of the process. I've always worked with traditional publishers. This means that I've always had agents and editors. And so I've had the good fortune of having readers already, right? So I mentioned before I was part of a critique group, so I did have critique groups reading my stuff before I went to an agent or an editor, up to a point, and then I didn't have that. And I felt comfortable enough with my writing that I was ready to send it to my agent as soon as I finished. Then my agent became the first reader. And the agent went through the entire novel and went through chapter by chapter and gave me that feedback of this is not working. Now, of course, an agent's going to be much more critical than your beta reader, your critique groups. Critique groups might be pretty critical, but beta readers won't be, not really, because they're reading as readers, right? And when we read a book, like when I read a book, right, what am I looking for? I'm just looking, am I enjoying this book? Does it make sense? Are the characters turning me off? Do I believe it? Is it just an enjoyable read? And that's really what a beta reader is going to do, right? But an agent and critique partners are looking at it more through your craft. Is it working? Is the pacing good? Is the structure working? Is the plot working? All of that. And so an agent will look at that, and an agent has in mind, okay, where am I going to send this? So this book is going to go to, these three, first tier publishers, let's say. And the agent, knowing that, will say, okay, this is what I know this editor likes, or I know this editor isn't going to like this, or I know that the book needs this. And so the agent will give you that type of feedback that you can then, adjust and edit your book and revise it so that it's ready to be sent to the editor. Once it gets sent to the editor, of course, the editor will also have input and may or may not like certain things or may want things changed. So, if you're traditionally published, you have that, benefit of having those built-in readers. If you are self-publishing, however, it's now going to be your job to find an editor to edit your book. And again, I suggest you don't skip this because it makes a huge difference. The editors will always find things. So at this point, you probably don't need a developmental editor. But your developmental editor is going to be as you're writing, when you sort of have your outline and you are still writing your books, trying to figure out like what am I going to do, what's going to work, and they help you sort of to develop that idea that you have, that plot for your book. At this point, you're probably going to need a line editor that's going to go through line by line and saying, is it working, and correct your sentences, correct your language, make suggestions as far as that. And that's going to help tighten the book, make it a better read. And depending on the line editor, they may let you know if there's something that just isn't working. Like, wow, this was really weird. I was following you and this didn't happen like I thought it was going to happen. But that's not really their job at this point. It's just looking at the flow of your novel and making sure that the sentences and the paragraphs are flowing well together. And then after that, you may want to have a copy editor. A copy editor is just going to look at just seriously language, grammar, and all of that stuff. And if you're comfortable after the line edit and you feel you don't need a copy editor, then that just depends on you. But you might want to invest in that as well. Okay, so the first thing then, once you're finished and you've celebrated and, had your ice cream cone or a glass of wine or whatever you want, or just a nice day at the beach maybe without eating anything, then it's time to get to work to get the book published, because now we're done writing and now it's time to get the book out there to readers so that they can enjoy what you've been writing all these weeks and months. Okay, so first thing then is looking for readers and editors. Okay, step 2, while your editor is looking at your novel and reading your novel, it's time to think about the cover, right? Because that's the next big thing. So what's going to sell your book? The book cover is going to sell your book, right? It's kind of sad. We've spent all this time writing. We've got this amazing book, right? Whether it's a novel or whether it's a great nonfiction book that's going to help somebody. We spent all this time writing it, and the reader may never pick it up if the reader is not interested, doesn't like the cover. So, that's just life. That's we do judge books by their cover. So we need a cover. And that is your next job, is to say now, okay, I'm going to find a cover designer, or I'm going to create my own cover. So unless you are very talented, I'm not, in design and in art and all of that, then you want to find somebody that is, and just hire a cover designer. Editors are much more expensive than cover designers usually. So cover designers are not crazy expensive. They can be. It just depends on what you want, right? If you want to hire your own models and all of that, then you're going to spend more money to create a cover. But there are other options, and the cover designers have stock images. They will create your cover based on samples that you send. So this is something that you can start doing, is looking at books in your genre and saying, okay, this is sort of what I want. This, I like this, I don't like this. And again, look in your genre. So what you want is, you want your book cover to be different enough, right? So it stands out. So your book doesn't look like every other book. However, kind of hard, right? But you want it to look like the other books as well. So you want your book to match, right? So it's like, I know this book, as soon as I pick it up, I know this book is a horror novel just by the cover. Or I know that my book is a romance because of the cover. Right? So it has to fit in that genre. So it can't be so different that the reader has no idea what they're picking up, or worse, that the writer picks up, let's say, something they are expecting to be a romance, and it ends up being a tragic women's fiction where 3 or 4 people die. It's just not. You don't want to confuse the reader, and you don't want to mislead the reader, because if they pick up your book thinking that it's a romance and it's not, then they're not going to be happy, right? And so we want our readers to be happy, because we don't want them to never buy our books again. We want them to love the book. We want them to love us as the author, and want to come back and say, okay, what else has the author written, and what else will this author write that I can buy in the future because I really like this book. So that's the goal, is to make sure that your cover matches, right, what the genre. And so looking for a cover designer that that works in your genre, that they have samples you can look at. So this is the time to do that, right? It's just to find that cover designer, or to create your own book cover. Again, if you're talented enough and you know what you're doing, then you would do that. But at this point, you want to focus on that. Now it's time to get the cover. All right, and the next thing then is, it's not really too early to start thinking about promoting your book. So from the time that you send your book to the editor and you're getting the cover design and you're kind of working these two things, right? It's going to take a few weeks for that. Then your book is going to come back from the editor and you're going to have to revise it. So depending on how long your editor takes, you're going to need at least another couple of weeks to go back and revise the book, depending on what the revisions say, or considering, it's time for you to consider what the editor said and make your revisions. So it's going to take you some time. But let's just say that we have a couple of months here to work with, right? To get the editing done, to get the revisions done, to get the book cover done. But after that, we're really kind of ready, right? We're ready to get this book out to the market. So these couple of months are really important, because what you want to do is you want to start to promote your book. You want to start letting readers like, hey, this book is coming out. It's going to be out in 2 months. It's going to be out in 3 months. And so doing some types of promotional things are good now. So depending on what you want to do, right? So you want to research different things that authors do. Anything from contests to just kind of, talking about your book on social media, doing a cover reveal when you get the cover, so showing the readers what your cover looks like. And it's all a lot of fun. Hopefully you have a lot of fun with it. So I don't really know any author that really loves promotion. I don't particularly like promotion. It's not the most fun thing in the world, but some parts of it fun. I mean, it is fun, right? Like when I get my cover, I'm excited about it. I want to share it with my friends on social media and my readers. So that part is fun. Some parts aren't as much fun because it's just a lot of work, right? It's a lot of work that I think of, okay, I'm going to run a contest, and where am I going to do it? How am I going to promote the contest? So it is a lot of work, but start thinking about what it is that you would like to do, because you do want to create some promotion. You don't want to release your book and then have nobody know that it's there, right? Because then that isn't going to lead you anywhere. It's just going to be like, okay, my book is up on Amazon, and I hope somebody kind of runs into it. That's not going to happen. So you want to do some type of promotion. This is a good time to start thinking about and start planning it and start creating sort of that buzz for your book. All right, and the next thing is to start a new story. So you're probably thinking, what? I just finished and I'm promoting and I'm doing all this stuff and I'm doing the editing, and you think, I should start a new book now. If you plan to have a career, like if this is just one book that you just had to get out of your system and you are finished and you're happy, then, that's awesome. Congratulations. But if you are thinking of this as being, okay, this is going to be a career. I'm starting now with this book and now I'm going to continue, right, to write more books and sell more books, then it's time to write the next one, right? So start thinking about the plot, take a day, relax, and say, okay, what else do I want to write? You might already know, like you might have a list, like, yeah, I've been waiting to finish because I have this other book I really want to write. So you may be at that point. And if you are, then that's awesome. Then, start plotting it, start outlining the book and start thinking about what it is you're going to write. If you have no idea, then of course this is time to start thinking, like, okay, playing all these what if games. What do I want to write? What do I feel like writing? What ideas do I have? You should have like maybe when something comes to you, right, that you write down these ideas, go back there and take a look at those and say, was this a good idea? Typically what happens like halfway through your book, when you're writing your book, you get all kinds of ideas because you just don't want to finish the book you're writing. So going back and saying, let me see if any of those ideas were actually good. You can go back and do that. Some of them will be, some of them won't. But this is the time to start looking and start saying, okay, I'm ready to write my next book, because you know how long it takes to write a book, right? It takes a long time. So start thinking about it, start writing, start outlining, start planning to create this new book, because as it gives you, again, the promotion part and the selling part, most authors don't like that. It's like we have to do this, but it's not something that we really love and enjoy. But the writing part is the part we love, right? So we want to make time for that too. So we want to not just be like completely in this like selling mode, promoting mode, and then this whole creative side of us just gets ignored. You don't want to do that. You want to just continue to write. So it's like, yeah, okay, I have to do the social media stuff, but then afterwards I get to go and start writing my next book. I get to write the next chapter of my book, so that you are still enjoying your career as a writer. You're still creating the next book, but you're also not forgetting the book you just wrote, and you're promoting that as well and marketing that and making sure that readers actually get to read the book you just wrote, and then and then when they're done, they have the new book that you're writing now. So write some more, write a new book. And the very last thing is to take a little bit of time, read something fun that you want to read. So take a little time to read. Writers should read all the time. But for me, I know I have a difficult time reading within my genre when I'm writing, when I'm in the middle of writing. So I write women's fiction, so I tend to not read women's fiction when I'm writing, because I don't want like my voice to get confused. I don't want to compare myself to other writers and that story. I don't want to just get distracted from what I'm doing. So I read probably, if I was going to say like the percentage, like when I'm writing, I will read probably like 75% nonfiction. So I'll read all kinds of books about anything else, right? I'll read books on personal development. I'll read books on religion. I'll read books on dieting. I'll read just books on anything, because I want to keep reading. And I'll read books on craft. I'll read books on writing and magazines and blogs on writing. So I continue to read. And then I will also, like the other 25% are reading novels that are not in my genre. So I won't read a horror novel. So that's a bad example, because I wouldn't do that. But I would read a mystery, or I would read a suspenseful crime novel, or I would read a fantasy novel, or something different, right? Something other than what I'm reading. I might even read a romance, as long as it's not women's fiction, and hope that doesn't impact me, right? So that I don't all of a sudden think, oh, I'm writing women's fiction, I better throw in a sex scene. No, I can't do that on women's fiction unless it fits. And I do worry about that sometimes, because I am a romance writer and I'm a women's fiction writer, and I don't want to confuse the two. Even though women's fiction does have romance in it, it's not really about the romance as much. It doesn't have to be, it can be. It's usually about relationships. So it has to make sense, right? And again, I'm a romance writer, so I do add a lot of romance into my women's fiction, but I don't want to be, I don't want to be influenced by a romance novel when I'm writing a women's fiction. So sometimes I stay away from those as well. But read a book, have a good time, enjoy reading, and enjoy being finished with your book. But these are just some tips of what to do when you are done with your book. So again, right after celebrating, you want to do that. You want to send it to an editor. You want to get your cover designer. You want to begin a new book, you want to send your book out to readers and editors. You want to get that cover ready and prepared and designed. You want to do some of that promotion. You want to start your new book, and you want to read. You want to continue reading in your genre so that you stay up to date with that. Okay, so congratulations on finishing your book. If you have finished your book, if not, now you know what to do as soon as you're done. So I will see you again next week. Thanks for being here. If you like this video, please hit the like button and share it with other people.